The air conditioning hummed low and steady inside the courtroom, but I was sweating through my collar. Amanda sat across from me in a pale beige blazer. Her legs crossed like this was a casual brunch. She whispered something to her lawyer and tilted her head back in a fake laugh, all teeth and gloss and practiced indifference. I sat still, quiet, palms flat against my thighs. But inside my chest, something was cracking. Let me take you back 3 months. It was a Tuesday morning. Rain hitting the window like fingers drumming. I got up at 6, made coffee, brought her a cup like I always did, hazelnut creamer, 2 sugars, just how she liked it. She mumbled thanks, didn't even look up from her phone. I stood there for a second too long, holding my own mug, watching her scroll through something with that little smirk she'd started wearing lately. That smirk that didn't belong to the woman I married. Something was off. No, not something, everything. We met 8 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding in Charleston. She wore a yellow dress and drank 3 glasses of wine before the ceremony started. She pulled me onto the dance floor even though I didn't dance. Said I looked like I needed saving. Amanda was the kind of woman who knew how to charm a room. She could fold any man into a yes with nothing but a smile. But I wasn't just any man, or so I thought. She chose me, or maybe I was convenient, steady, predictable, solid in ways the others weren't. The first time I noticed her change was subtle. New perfume that didn't smell like anything I'd ever bought her. She started going to the gym late at night. Long walks alone that ended 2 hours later with her hair perfectly styled and lipstick reapplied. Then came the locked phone. The sudden stops in conversation when I walked in. The way she laughed more in the kitchen with her AirPods in than she ever did in conversation with me. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself that people grow, that maybe it was a phase. She'd had work stress. Maybe she was depressed. Maybe I wasn't showing enough affection. So I tried harder. I planned a weekend away, booked the same bed and breakfast we stayed in on our anniversary 3 years ago. When I told her, she blinked slowly and said she'd already made plans with friends. That night, she came home at 3 a.m., hair messy, shirt inside out. She said she slept over at Emily's. I texted Emily the next morning. No reply. Later that week, I overheard Amanda on the phone in the backyard. He suspects something, she said. But he'll never actually do anything. Her voice was low, confident, cold. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started collecting photos of receipts, screenshots of texts I caught glimpses of when she forgot to close her iPad, GPS records. One night, I followed her. She said she was going to a Pilates class. I watched her drive to a downtown hotel and step out of the car in a dress I'd never seen. 15 minutes later, a man joined her in the lobby, tall, business casual, smiling like this wasn't his first time. I went home, sat on the couch in the dark until the sun came up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, feeling like I'd walked off the edge of a cliff and was waiting to hit the ground. When she got back that morning, she looked surprised to see me awake. She dropped her bag near the door, kicked off her shoes and said, "You didn't have to wait up. You know I like to wind down after class." She walked right past me and went to shower. I made 3 calls that day. A lawyer, a financial advisor, and a locksmith. We didn't talk much after that. She noticed the new locks, raised an eyebrow, said, "Bit paranoid, aren't you?" I shrugged, told her I was just being cautious. She didn't ask any more questions. The divorce papers were served 2 weeks later. She smiled when she saw them, actually smiled, said, "Finally," like she was being freed from prison. Told me I was a good guy, just not exciting enough. Not spontaneous. Said she hoped we could still be friends. Friends. Amanda had already packed emotionally months ago. She moved out that weekend, humming as she boxed her clothes, sipping wine while taking selfies in front of the mirror. No tears. No hesitation. Now back to the courtroom. I've been quiet this whole time. Let her lead the dance. Her lawyer made bold statements, all based on surface-level assumptions. They never asked for a forensic accountant. Never demanded discovery. They thought I was a basic salaried guy in tech. Comfortable, not wealthy. Amanda had waived spousal support in the revised prenup 2 years ago when I'd proposed a financial restructuring plan. She didn't read it, just signed. Said she trusted me. The judge started listing the asset disclosures, investment accounts, company shares, the equity stake in a cybersecurity firm about to go public, the property in Colorado. Her laugh faded into silence. Her mouth hung open slightly. She leaned into her lawyer, whispering furiously. The lawyer blinked, sat back, didn't say a word. Amanda turned to look at me, first time in months. Not a word passed between us. But I knew what that look meant. She'd lost. The first message came 2 days after the hearing. No subject. Just a 3-word email. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for maybe a full minute. It felt strange seeing her name again in that format. Amanda G. Floating above a message that was shorter than the grocery lists she used to leave on the fridge. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't want to, because I already knew where it was going. The second message was longer. I didn't realize you were hiding things from me, she wrote. I thought we were supposed to be honest. That one made me laugh. Out loud. Alone in my home office, I leaned back in my chair and let it roll out of me. This ugly, bitter laugh that probably sounded more like a cough. Amanda, talking about honesty. The same Amanda who spent our last year together mapping out a whole secret life behind my back. By the time the third message came, I was angry and hurt. I didn't mean to act like that in court. I miss you. It was almost insulting. Not because she said she missed me, but because of how easily the words came. Like she thought I'd still be there. Like I hadn't spent the last 6 months watching everything I loved about her disintegrate piece by piece. But that wasn't even the strangest part. It was what followed. A week later, I was having dinner with an old college buddy, Jake. He's blunt, straightforward, not the sugarcoating type. Over steak and whiskey he goes, "You know Amanda's telling people you cheated, right?" I blinked. "What?" "Yeah," he said. "Ran into Emily at the gym. She said Amanda told her you were screwing your assistant and that's why she left." I don't even have an assistant. That night, I got home and sat in the driveway with the engine running, headlights painting 2 pale beams onto the garage. I felt my chest tighten. Not because of the lie, but because I suddenly understood something. I had never really known who Amanda was. Not fully. Not beneath the practiced charm and soft smiles and bedroom eyes. She was playing a role the entire time. And I was the audience, clapping like a fool. She'd taken her version of the story and ran with it. Online. With friends. With mutual acquaintances. My name was being dragged through conversations I wasn't even part of. And every time I tried to defend myself, I looked guilty. Because Amanda knew one thing better than anyone else. How to make herself look like the victim. Then came the text. "Amanda, I made a mistake. I didn't want this. Can we try again?" No apology. No ownership. Just a sudden realization that maybe, just maybe, she'd miscalculated. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I opened the vault. It wasn't a metaphorical vault. I literally had a digital storage vault I'd built during the early weeks of suspicion. Inside were photos, time-stamped videos, chat logs. Everything. A careful archive of her second life. I kept it quiet. Never used it. Never shared it. But now I started sending pieces of it anonymously to the right people. No threats. No notes. Just facts. Her boss. Her sister. A couple of the friends who had been distant lately. One by one, the fake version of Amanda started crumbling. She didn't go quietly. The next message was full of rage. "You're pathetic. You're bitter. You can keep your money, but you'll always be a loser. No woman will ever love you the way I did." The way she did? I sat with those words for a long time. I thought about love. Real love. The kind where you don't have to check your partner's location history to sleep at night. The kind where conversations don't feel like interrogations. The kind I used to believe we had. Then I deleted her number. Later that week, I got a call from a mutual friend, Josh. He said Amanda had moved in with the guy from the hotel. Said they'd been seeing each other for nearly a year before the divorce. Said Amanda told him it wasn't serious until the end. Until the end. Like that made it better. I looked out the window. The sun was setting. Orange streaks across the sky like someone had sliced it open. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm. I was free. 2 weeks passed. Not a word. Not a whisper. I thought maybe it was over. Then she showed up at my house. I was in the garage, checking the tires on the motorcycle I hadn't ridden since last fall. It was a Saturday, quiet, warm, the kind of weather that makes you believe in second chances. Until the past pulls into your driveway uninvited. She got out of a silver car I didn't recognize. Tight jeans, oversized sunglasses, and that same jacket I bought her 3 Christmases ago. She walked with that confident sway like she still had access, like the front door still opened for her by default. I didn't move. She stopped at the edge of the driveway. "You gonna say anything?" I wiped my hands on a rag, set the tire gauge down slow. Didn't think there was anything left to say. Amanda took off her sunglasses. Her eyes looked different, not softer, just unsure, like the wires weren't connecting the way they used to. "Can we talk inside?" "No." A pause. That word had weight. She wasn't used to hearing it from me. "Look," she said. "I know things got out of hand. I know I said stuff I didn't mean. You don't think I regret how that courtroom went? How I looked?" "That's what you regret?" I asked. "How you looked." She blinked, caught off guard. For a second, the Amanda I knew peeked through. Not the liar. Not the manipulator. Just the woman who used to press her forehead to mine on Sunday mornings and whisper, "We've got everything." Then the mask slipped back on. "I didn't come here to fight." "Then why did you come?" She hesitated. "I'm not happy, okay? I thought I wanted something different. I thought. You thought the guy from the Marriott would make you feel young again," I said. Calm. Flat. "Didn't work out?" Her jaw tensed. "It's not like that." "No." I stepped forward once. Not threatening. Just done pretending. "You lied. Repeatedly. You laughed in court. You tried to flip the narrative so everyone thought I was the bad guy. And now that you're locked out of the life you used to mock, you want a conversation?" Silence. "You knew I never cared about the money," she said finally. "But you hid it. You weaponized it." "I protected myself," I said. "You made it necessary." Amanda crossed her arms. "You always think you're the smart one, like you're above emotion. But you're not. You're just cold. That's why this happened." "No," I said. "This happened because you wanted more attention than commitment. More secrets than trust. You didn't fall out of love. You outgrew the idea of loyalty." She scoffed. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said. "I think I'm better without you." That one hit. She flinched. Then her expression hardened into something sharp. "I hope you choke on that money." And just like that, she walked back to the car. No more apologies. No more pleas. Just venom. Pure and instinctive. The car pulled away. I stood there for a long time, listening to the sound of her engine fade into the distance. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just stillness. Later that night, I opened the bottle of bourbon my father gave me on my wedding day. I poured one glass, sat on the deck, watched the stars blink into the sky like tiny, indifferent eyes. I thought about love again, and this time I wasn't thinking about her. The messages resumed the next morning. Different tone now. Desperate. Erratic. "Amanda, please don't shut me out. I made mistakes, yes, but we were more than this. You and me, we built something real." I stared at that sentence, not because it moved me, but because of how convincing she still thought she was. Built something real, as if love was measured by mortgage payments and framed vacation photos instead of honesty, sacrifice, and showing up even when it's inconvenient. I didn't reply. I went to the gym instead. Mid-set, my phone buzzed again. "Amanda, I left him. He wasn't what I thought. He didn't care about me the way you did. He just wanted, you know. I see that now." She was unraveling. Later that afternoon, Emily texted me. Yes, the same Emily who once helped Amanda cover up her little escapades. Her message was short. "Just so you know, Amanda's been telling people you're trying to win her back, that you regret letting her go." I let out a breath through my nose, almost smiling. Amanda was still dancing her routine, spinning the narrative like sugar on a stick. But she didn't know the music had already stopped. By Friday, she crossed a line. "Amanda, if you don't at least talk to me, I'll tell people you were abusive. Mentally, emotionally, that you controlled everything." There it was. The threat. Not subtle. Not clever. Just raw, impulsive, and cowardly. I took a screenshot. Sent it to my lawyer. No reply from him yet. It was past office hours, but I felt the knot in my stomach dissolve. Because now she was documenting her own unraveling. And then came Saturday. Another knock at my door. This time I checked the camera first. Not Amanda. Her mother, Sandra. A woman I hadn't seen since the rehearsal dinner before our wedding. A woman who once cried while hugging me and said she was relieved Amanda had finally found someone stable. I opened the door, confused. She looked nervous, wringing her hands like she'd been rehearsing this for hours. "I won't stay long," she said. "I just needed to see you. Alone." I stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen island, a safe space full of neutral tones and expensive silence. She didn't drink the coffee I made her, just cupped the mug like it was a shield. "I'm sorry," she said first, "for everything you've been dragged through." I blinked. "I know my daughter," she continued. "I knew what she was capable of. I should have said something sooner, but I stayed out of it because she made it clear, if I picked your side, I'd lose her." She paused, looked me straight in the eyes. "I think I lost her anyway." I didn't know what to say. Sandra reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. "I found this in her old room. She'd left her laptop open one night, months ago, and I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Emails, photos, messages, things that go back a lot farther than I ever imagined. She's been lying to you longer than anyone knows." I didn't reach for the drive. I didn't want to see more, but I nodded once, slowly, took it from her fingers and set it aside. "She needs help," Sandra said quietly. "Real help, but she won't get it from people who enable her." "I'm not one of those people anymore," I said. She gave a sad smile. Then she left. I never asked her to come. Never expected it. But as the door clicked shut behind her, I felt something settle. Not relief. Not triumph. Just confirmation. Amanda wasn't my mistake. Loving her was. But staying after I knew the truth? That would have been unforgivable. I didn't touch the USB drive for 3 days. Not because I was afraid of what was on it. I already knew. It wasn't the contents that haunted me. It was what it represented. Every single byte on that drive was a timestamp on a life I had been living alone while she was somewhere else. Digitally, emotionally, and physically. On the 4th night, I plugged it into the old laptop in my study. There were 2 folders. One labeled work, the other archive. Archive first. Inside, dozens of screenshots. Email exchanges between Amanda and a man named Brandon. The same Brandon who, I now remembered, once shook my hand at Amanda's company Christmas party and told me I was a lucky guy. That was a year and a half ago. Judging by the earliest messages, they'd already been seeing each other by then. There were photos too, some from hotels, some from out-of-town trips I thought she was taking solo. Even one dated the weekend I had pneumonia, when she told me she was visiting her sister and couldn't come home early because of a broken radiator. I closed the laptop, not in anger, not with tears, just silence. Because at that point, the betrayal wasn't even surprising anymore. It was just confirmed. The next day, I called my lawyer again. I asked him a simple question. If she starts pushing these lies publicly, how fast can we shut it down? He answered, faster than she can finish a sentence. He already had the messages, the threats, the emails. Now, with the drive Sandra gave me, the case was airtight. She didn't just burn the bridge. She torched the whole village. Later that evening, Jake invited me to a rooftop bar downtown. Said I needed to get out of my head. Just unwind. I almost said no, but I went. The city looked different from up there. Like a painting of itself. Lit windows, soft music from neighboring terraces. The buzz of people who hadn't had their lives imploded recently. I nursed one drink. Jake made jokes. We talked about sports, work, cars, anything that didn't sound like Amanda. And then a woman walked past our table. Tall, dark hair, leather jacket. As like she'd seen storms. She glanced back at me once. Just once. Jake leaned in. Go talk to her. I shook my head, smiling. It's not the time. He shrugged. Doesn't have to be the time. Just a time. I didn't talk to her. But I didn't feel nothing either. That mattered. When I got home, Amanda had messaged again. Amanda, I heard you've been spreading lies about me. If you keep doing this, I'll come for you legally. I forwarded it to my lawyer. His reply, let her. The next morning, the full audit of our finances was finalized. The numbers were clean. Her name wasn't attached to anything substantial. Everything she'd hoped to milk, she'd walked away from willingly. She didn't read the fine print when we updated our prenup. Thought it was just about estate planning. I had recorded her agreement on camera. Her nod, her signature, her joke. Sure, whatever. It's not like we're ever splitting up. She couldn't claw back a single dime. That day, I went to the storage unit where I kept some of our old things. Wedding photos, gifts, cards. The remnants of a reality I'd been clinging to long after it stopped existing. I took one box with me, drove to a field behind my father's old property, built a fire, watched everything burn, not out of hatred, but because I refused to carry it forward. Amanda had taken enough. She didn't get to take the future too. It had been nearly 2 months since the divorce was finalized. 2 months since Amanda laughed in a courtroom like she was performing for an invisible audience. 2 months since she realized what she'd walked away from. And yet, somehow her shadow still lingered. Not in my house, not in my phone, but in the conversations people had about me when they didn't think I was listening. She seems like she's going through something. Maybe he wasn't as innocent as he looks. Didn't she say he was emotionally unavailable? It's funny how people choose sides, not based on truth, but based on volume. Amanda always spoke louder than me, and for some that was enough. But something had changed in me. I wasn't the man who used to chase fairness. I wasn't checking social media anymore. I wasn't correcting whispers. I let the stories breathe and die, because they always die. Lies run fast, but they burn out. One afternoon, while cleaning out the last of her things in the garage, old boxes she'd never claimed, I found something small, wedged behind a cabinet, a velvet pouch. Inside was the necklace I gave her on our first anniversary. A tiny silver key with the word always etched into the side. She used to wear it every day, until she stopped. I held it for a moment. That weight, that lie. Then I dropped it in the trash without a word. The following week, Jake convinced me to attend a local entrepreneur meetup. I hesitated, too many name tags, too many surface-level conversations, but he said, "You've got all this experience, all this success, and you're just sitting on it. Come tell your story." I didn't tell him the truth. I didn't want to talk about that story, but I went anyway. The venue was a high-rise loft space with floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek white furniture. I wore a suit, not to impress, just to remind myself of the man I had rebuilt underneath the wreckage. People shook my hand, asked for insight, smiled when I spoke. And then she appeared again. Not Amanda. Her. The woman from the rooftop bar. Same leather jacket. Same storm-colored eyes. This time, she was standing across the room, sipping something red, nodding politely at a man who clearly didn't interest her. Our eyes met. I approached. We didn't talk about work. We didn't talk about pasts. We talked about favorite bookstores. The kind of music we listened to when driving with no destination. Her name was Rachel. She hated cucumbers. She loved thunderstorms. She once ran away from a date because the guy said, "My ex was crazy," within 5 minutes of sitting down. We laughed. It was light, effortless, real. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I was betraying myself by smiling. When I got home, there was another message from Amanda. Just one line. "Amanda, do you ever think about what we had?" No greeting, no punctuation, just a ghost trying to rattle chains that no longer held me. I didn't respond. I sat on the edge of my bed, opened the window, and let the air move through the room like it was clearing out the past itself. I used to think about what we had. Now, I think about what I almost let destroy me. Sunday morning arrived quietly. No phone buzzing. No footsteps down the hall. No half-hearted, "Hey, babe," from the kitchen, followed by the sound of Amanda pouring coffee she didn't make. Just silence. Real, peaceful silence. I got up early, before the sun fully claimed the sky. Made myself eggs and toast. Played a jazz record Amanda used to call pretentious. And opened the windows. Let the cool air roll in like a clean slate. I hadn't heard from her in nearly a week. The shift was noticeable, like when a thunderstorm passes and you realize just how loud the rain was only after it stops. That morning I got a call from a name I didn't recognize. Is this Ethan? Yes. This is Mark. I don't know if Amanda ever mentioned me. We've met. Briefly. I already knew. The guy from the hotel. He exhaled. Yeah. I stayed silent. I didn't know, he said. At first, I thought she was separated. She told me you were controlling, that you cheated, that you were emotionally cold. Still, I said nothing. I believed her, until last week. She, tried to move in with me, showed up at my place with a suitcase, told me she missed me and she was done chasing ghosts. I told her no. She got angry, started yelling about how you manipulated everything, how you were going to ruin her. His voice cracked, not with emotion, with frustration. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. I didn't know who else to tell. I thanked him, not because I needed his apology, but because, in some small way, it closed another chapter. After that call, I went for a drive, took the coast road. No destination, just the road, the wheel, and my own breath sinking with the tide beyond the cliffs. Somewhere around mile marker 48, I pulled over, watched the water crash against the rocks. Amanda was gone, not physically. She still existed somewhere, probably telling someone new about her cold ex-husband and the mansion she almost got. But she was no longer in me, not in my thoughts, not in my plans, not in the little hesitations I used to carry like invisible bruises. That evening I met Rachel again. A small Italian place downtown. No reservations, just a walk-in. She wore no makeup, just a navy blue dress and a look in her eyes like she already knew how to read between silences. We talked about how people reassemble themselves, how pain either hardens or clarifies. She didn't ask about Amanda, but when the waiter brought the check, and I reached for it, she put a hand on mine and said, "You don't have to prove anything tonight." I think I loved her for that. Not romantically, not yet, but with a kind of gratitude I hadn't felt in a long time. I drove her home. She kissed my cheek. No promise, just presence. Later that night, I passed by the hallway mirror. Stopped. Looked at myself. Not the hair, not the posture, not the aging lines. I looked into my own eyes, and I saw someone I hadn't seen in years. A man who had survived something he didn't know he'd been drowning in. A man who wasn't waiting anymore. For apologies, for closure, or for the past to rewind itself. The story with Amanda was over. What came next? That was mine to write. 2 months later, the storm broke publicly. Not by my hand. Not even by Amanda's, but by truth, steady, inevitable, unshakable. It started with a LinkedIn post. A woman I barely knew, former coworker of Amanda's, shared a vague note about watching someone try to rewrite a story they were never honest about to begin with. It wasn't tagged, but people knew. Comments came in quickly, carefully worded but pointed. A few people messaged me privately. "She's spiraling. Her story's falling apart. She told me you drained her accounts. Now we know." Apparently Amanda had been trying to leverage sympathy into connections, telling potential employers she'd been blindsided by divorce, financially trapped, emotionally abandoned. She left out the prenup, the affair, the threats, but reality doesn't stay buried. Eventually, someone mentioned the court records. Public, plain. Anyone with curiosity and an internet connection could see she'd waived any claim. Signed away support. Walked. There's a reason people fear paper trails. Amanda started posting cryptic quotes on her social media. Never trust the silent ones. Some people fake kindness better than others fake love. And then, eventually, radio silence. She vanished. Not literally. She just stopped talking where people could hear her. Meanwhile, I was building. My startup deal closed. New contracts, new expansion. I kept my name quiet, let the product speak. My lawyer called one afternoon just to say, "You know, most men in your situation would have burned everything down." I thought about it, I told him. But then I remembered. I've got better things to build. Rachel and I didn't rush anything. She came over some evenings. We cooked. read, took walks when the city was asleep. She never asked for details about Amanda. She never tried to compare or console. She just listened when I spoke, and when I didn't, she never filled the silence with her own voice. One night we sat in my backyard, fire pit glowing low. Rachel leaned into me and asked, "What did it feel like? Loving someone who didn't love you back the way you needed?" It wasn't pity. It was curiosity, depth. I thought for a long moment. It felt like carrying a glass vase through a war zone. You keep hoping if you hold it just right, you'll get out without a scratch. But you don't. And when it shatters, you wonder if it was ever worth holding in the first place. She nodded. But now I'm not holding anything that wasn't meant for me. She smiled. We stayed quiet after that. And that silence? It wasn't the kind Amanda gave me, sharp and punishing. It was gentle, whole, unbroken. A few days later, I boxed the last of Amanda's paperwork. Loose legal documents, random receipts, a faded wedding invitation I didn't remember keeping. I locked the box and brought it to the storage unit, tucked it in the farthest corner. Not to hide it, but to put it where it belonged. The past isn't something you erase. It's something you outgrow. One afternoon, Jake and I grabbed lunch. He raised a glass and said, "To survival." I clinked mine against his and said, "To something better than that." There was a day I thought healing would feel like fire, like reclaiming space with fury, building a new life out of scorched earth and hard lessons. But it didn't happen like that. Healing, real healing, was quiet, almost imperceptible. It was in the mornings I didn't check my phone for her name, in the dinners that didn't feel like rituals to silence loneliness, in the way I started laughing again, not out of obligation, not because someone else needed to hear it, but because I felt light enough to. It was walking into my own home and not feeling like a stranger. There was one final echo, though. Amanda showed up again. This time, not in person. Not a message. Not a voicemail or a knock. A friend, someone from our old life, forwarded me a blog post she'd written. Anonymously, of course. But the details weren't disguised well. The tone unmistakable. She wrote about being left behind by a man who weaponized silence. Said she should have fought harder for the life she built. Claimed she was a cautionary tale of a woman punished for seeking independence. Painted herself like a tragic character in a film where love dried up and pride was all she had left. I didn't respond. Didn't comment. Didn't let the bitterness in her words chase me back into that place. But I did feel something. Pity. Not because she was broken, but because she still needed an audience. Still needed someone to believe she was the one who suffered most. Her tragedy wasn't the divorce. Her tragedy was never learning how to live without being seen. I told Rachel about it briefly. She tilted her head, thoughtful, then asked, "What do you want to do with that?" "Nothing," I said. "Good," she replied. "Let her live in that chapter. You've already turned the page." She was right. 1 week later, I got an invitation to speak at a leadership seminar. The topic was resilience. I almost declined. Then I realized it wasn't about telling my story. It was about showing others what it looked like to rebuild. On stage, I kept it professional. No names, no drama, just the truth. Sometimes the biggest growth comes after you've been hollowed out. The version of you that survives heartbreak, that version is forged, not found. And the ones who hurt you don't get to define your narrative unless you keep handing them the pen. Applause came slowly, then steady. Afterward, a young guy approached me, said he'd been through something similar, said he thought he'd never climb out of it. He shook my hand and said, "You made me feel like it's possible." It is, not because pain stops, but because you start choosing yourself over and over again. I took a trip alone. No destination in mind, just a full tank. A playlist of old songs I used to love before my life turned into damage control, and an open stretch of highway that curved like a ribbon into the hills. No luggage, just a duffel bag, a notebook, and the understanding that I didn't need to escape anything anymore. I just wanted to be somewhere still, away from noise, from memory, from expectation. I ended up at a small cabin 3 hours north, tucked behind pine trees and fog. No Wi-Fi, no reception. The kind of place where you rediscover the sound of your own heartbeat. On the second night, I sat on the porch and reread every journal entry I had written during the collapse. March 5th. She didn't come home until 3 a.m. Lied about where she was. I pretended to believe her. I don't know why. April 12th. I'm starting to think I'm being erased piece by piece, and I'm watching it happen in real time. May 8th. I can't tell if she hates me, or if I just remind her of who she really is. June 1st. She laughed in court. Every word carried weight. Not the kind that drags you down, but the kind that proves you climbed out. The final entry, dated 1 week ago, was just one line. I am no longer angry. It was true. The grief had washed out of me like sand pulled back to sea. And what remained wasn't numbness. It was clarity. Amanda had been a storm, yes, but I was the one who stayed standing when it passed. The phone rang as I drove back into reception the next day. Rachel, did you find what you were looking for? She asked. No, I said, but I think I found what I needed to leave behind. She didn't ask for details. She just said, come over. I made dinner. No cucumbers. I laughed. Be there soon. When I walked through her door later, she didn't look at me like a savior. She looked at me like a man who had chosen to face every piece of wreckage, and still stepped forward anyway. We ate, we talked, we planned a trip. Not an escape. A beginning. I once believed closure came in confrontation. That justice had to feel like something sharp. But closure, real closure, is this. A clean room. An open road. Quiet heart. Amanda's chapter ended with silence, not mine, but hers. No more messages. No more threats. No more performance. Just absence. And in that absence, I finally found what she never gave me. Peace. If you're reading this because you're going through something like I did, hear this, it ends. But more importantly, you begin. The people who betray you don't get the final word. You do. And when you speak, it won't sound like revenge. It'll sound like freedom.